Coming from CNBC, OpenAI cuts prices for two of its GPT 5.6 AI models as companies grow sensitive to costs. Yes, we can see just how valuable artificial intelligence is in the real world. If you don't put it on fire sale pricing, people don't want to actually buy this crap. So I think this is kind of an interesting story just to show that we are getting past the buzz cycle. We are getting past the excitement cycle in the AI world. And we are getting to the point where executives really have to be able to explain why they're spending all of this money on artificial intelligence. And what we're starting to find out is that the returns simply are not there. As I've talked about before, Accenture is a global consulting company, right? They do IT projects and that type of thing for companies such as the Fortune 500 companies. And they've been shoving artificial intelligence down all of their clients' throats for the past couple of years. And what Accenture is coming out and now saying is that the executives at these companies are simply not seeing a return on investment. They got on board with artificial intelligence. They deployed artificial intelligence, and yeah, they're just not getting anything back for that. And so the big problem right now is for these AI companies, right? They were expecting to be able to pull in all of this money, right? If you are replacing the entire world's workforce with your little AI agents, you would expect that to be worth $28 trillion, right? You can charge almost any amount of money because your technology is just so darn valuable. The problem is their technology isn't so darn valuable, and so everything is kind of going to hell. I do have to say, artificial intelligence is starting to look a hell of a lot like NFTs. And that is not a good thing. That is not a good thing. So OpenAI right now is cutting prices and cutting prices pretty drastically in some instances. Let's see here. OpenAI on Thursday announced it is slashing the price of two of its latest AI models, GPT 5.6 Terra and GPT 5.6 Luna, roughly 3 weeks after their public release. The company is facing pressure to cater to a more cost-sensitive customer base, where enterprises have been less inclined to deploy expensive models without a clear picture of the return on their investments. Because, yeah, that's how business works. Executives spend money in order to get returns. One of the weird things that's been going on with this whole AI boom is nobody has really been sure what problems AI is going to solve. Nobody is really sure where the value of AI is. But there's been this whole push of you have to deploy artificial intelligence as fast as possible. And companies have been doing it. Companies have been doing it. But now we're a few years into this whole idiocy, and what we're seeing is, I mean, think about this for a second. All right, we are told this whole myth, this whole storyline about artificial intelligence, and in 2026, again, without a clear picture of return on their investments. That is a hell of an indictment for 2026. If you said that in 2022, fair enough. It kind of sort of makes sense. ChatGPT was brand new. Maybe you're not really sure where the value is going to come from this technology, but we're in 2026. We are in a period of time where these companies are investing $750 billion in CapEx this year in order to deploy artificial intelligence. And yet the executives, the customers that they are trying to sell to, do not have a clear picture on why the hell they should buy this crap. That's just crap insanity. It's also working to fend off competition from Chinese startups and tech giants Google and Microsoft, which have been touting cost-effective models. OpenAI launched 3 models as part of its GPT 5.6 series, including Sol, the most powerful offering, Terra, the mid-tier model, and Luna, its fastest offering. The company said Thursday it's reducing the price of Terra by 20% to $2 per million input tokens and $12 per million output tokens, which I do have to say, I mean, that's cheap. That's a lot of tokens for not very much money. It's cutting the cost of Luna by 80%. to 20 cents per million input tokens and 120 per million output tokens, Sol's price remains the same. Quote, our strategy remains focused on advancing both capability and efficiency so each generation of intelligence can accomplish more work at a lower cost, OpenAI said in a release. So basically, in order to continue, bringing in customers, or at least having the customers they have, they're having to sell 1 million tokens, input tokens, for 20 cents. For 20 cents. Oh man, those numbers started to get brutal. Right? Because remember, right, what we've heard from Sam Altman, what we've heard from the CEO of OpenAI is they have to IPO at $1 trillion. Anything less than $1 trillion is a non-starter, which means anything less than $1 trillion IPO means OpenAI fails. And that is really on the table. For some reason, people take that as a joke. People take that as melodrama. Look, they have a tremendous amount of money that is required to simply keep their lights on. If they don't keep the money coming in, whether through revenue or investment, lights get turned off, right? All of these servers and the data centers, the GPUs and all that, it takes a lot of money just to keep those damn things on, right? And so one of the things to be thinking about from a business standpoint is when they start talking about selling 1 million input tokens for 20 cents, 20 cents. Man, those numbers start looking ugly fast. Just really ugly fast. Now I get there's reasoning, right? So that was the thing with token utilization. When these models first came out, there was a token, the input tokens and the output tokens, and that's all there was, right? Now with reasoning models, there's the input tokens, the reasoning tokens, and then the output tokens. That dramatically increases the number of tokens that have to be used. And now with these agentic systems, now you have these agentic systems that are just running 24/7, doing whatever. So again, I do understand the whole concept of, well, if you have agentic systems using reasoning models, they're going to burn a lot of tokens. But man, that's a lot of tokens to get to $1 trillion valuation. You're going to get to that $1 trillion valuation 20 cents at a time. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. Just, that's ugly. That's what we call really ugly. So I'll be curious to see where this goes with OpenAI. And again, we come back at the end of the day to the whole question of what is the actual value of these products, and do they support the valuations of the companies? Like one of the things I think about, I've talked about this before. With my father was a PhD industrial engineer, for his career. When I was a kid, his job, literally during the 1980s, was to go out and find out why robots killed people. Right, so a lot of the factories at that point in time, they were deploying a lot of robots in the 1980s, and when you when you have big metal robots, and not, let's just say, not the best sensor systems in the world, lots of fucking ugly shit happens. Just really, oh lordy, dinner table conversation in the 1980s. Not a pretty thing. So how did that man's arm get ripped off? But anyways, what was curious, all right? And so he's doing that. And the development of robots during the 1980s was really incredibly quick, really incredibly fast. And one of the things to think about, like with these robots, is they don't necessarily need as much computational power as you might think, right? Basically, because when you set up the systems and when you program them and that type of thing, the modern computational systems and the modern sensors allow you to decrease training time. So the better sensors you have, the better computer system you have, the less time you have to spend on training the things. But the thing was, I was thinking back in the 1980s, they didn't have the same computing power and the same sensors, so they just spent a lot of time training these robots to get them up to snuff, and they actually did the job really, really well. And it was really curious, though, is by the time the 1990s came around, there was a lot, the whole robot revolution, it kind of stalled, it kind of plateaued, and it was weird. And I was talking to a CEO a number of years later in the early 2000s, and I was talking to him about this because he dealt with China, a lot of industrial stuff. And I was like, yeah, I don't understand what happened, because it was like, my father was doing all this, robot engineering back in the 1980s. It was progressing rather quickly back then. There was no obvious bottleneck issue to keep robots from progressing. But really, like I say, from about 1990 to into the 2000s, in a lot of ways, the whole progression of robots just kind of stalled and stopped. And one of the interesting things is the CEO, the executive, looked at me and was like, "Oh yeah, because of China." And I was like, what does China have to do with this? And again, to be clear, this is the early 2000s. And he's like, yeah, well, those robots, absolute minimum, cost $100,000 a piece. And most of them cost a few $1 million a piece. I'm like, yeah, okay. He's like, yeah, well, in China, and again, at that point in time, you can hire a Chinese person for $5 a day. I was like, what? I was like, yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You hire a Chinese person for $5 a day, their entire salary for a year is going to be a couple $1,000s, right? So literally, a Chinese person is a fraction of the cost of a robot. So you just hire a Chinese per why focus on robots? And I think this is one of the curious things that kind of gets ignored with when we talk about things like technological development. That technological development is happening within a macro environment. Other things are occurring. Again, politics are occurring, tax policies occurring, wars are occurring, right? All of these things are occurring while technology is being developed. And remember that, especially for investors and that type of thing, they want to focus on wherever they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck. They want to put their money into something where they think they're going to get the highest return. So why spend $500,000 on a robot when you can simply hire a Chinese person for $5 a day, right? And at that point in time, the development for robots basically stalls because of this whole macro thing going on. What we see right now going on in China with so much of the advancement in robots is that China is dealing with a demographic cliff, right? So one of China's big problems right now is that their population is aging incredibly quickly. There are a lot of questions about the stability of their whole economic system as that happens. And so literally they have all of these factories, right? Their economic system is built on manufacturing and factories as their population is rapidly aging, and therefore investing a hell of a lot of money into robots makes a lot of sense. And now we are seeing a rapid development in robots because, again, that macro, right? The demographics are aging. That forces people to start looking for other options and other solutions. So I think that one of the interesting things with this is when we start looking at artificial intelligence and we start looking at the cost of artificial intelligence, the big question is it worth it? Right? If you can hire a virtual assistant in the Philippines for $10 a day or whatever else, and you're actually getting a real human being that you can interact with, does it make as much sense to do these AI systems? If you use these AI systems and you realize the value of our automation, one of the things you might figure out is that it's a hell of a lot less resource intensive to use a relational database and some if-else statements versus running everything through an LLM for every time everything has to get processed, right? Somebody, and this is one of my big arguments, is I think we are at the cusp of an automation revolution, right? In that LLM will be a component, but I would argue it's actually going to be a pretty small component, right? And so you might realize, oh yeah, we should automate these systems, but we're not going to automate them with LLMs because that's dumb. We're going to find a more efficient way to do it. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing as we move forward with the whole AI deal. And then that begs the question of what the hell is any of this garbage worth? 20 cents per million input tokens. How does that get you to $1 trillion valuation? Anyways, so what do you think about this? What do you think about OpenAI drastically cutting their prices? What do you think? What do you think the chances are OpenAI is still going to be alive in 2028? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these episodes, do remember they're on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Link is down below. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, there's a link down there too. With that, see y'all later.